Hello and welcome back to Perspectives, bringing you our daily dose of news and views covering the topics we hope are relevant to you. Today, we reveal the discussions between India and Canada going on over Niger and the impact on the Indian intelligence services. Gurdwaras around the world are ordered to step up their security, a new Sikh Court in London, and has Hindutva forced a change in local politics around London? Well, joining me as always for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and it's a beautiful day, isn't it? The sun is shining and we're out of the rain here in the lower mainland, so that's a good thing. Unfortunately, it brought some lightning and thunder with it, so we've got a few more forest fires. It's been one of those crazy summers, and I hear you guys have got a heat wave continuing on there in Europe.
The sun always shines here in Europe and especially on Satellite TV. And of course, James and I together will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. Of course, we will be taking a look at many of your wonderful comments that have poured in. Once again, thank you so much for those. But let's start with our news stories. And James, what have you got to start us off with today?
Well, we're going to take a look. I know that a lot of people, when they watch our show, they hear a lot of us talking about the India government and negatives and that. But I wanted to start off actually talking about the India people in a tragic situation going on right now. And what's happening is that there is a major landslide that has taken over 130 lives so far. The slide is causing trees, rocks, just houses being swept away. Over 100, as I said, 130 to 140 people already confirmed dead, and still a lot of people missing. And right now I'm going to bring you a story up on the screen from Reuters, and you can see the devastation here. But what's happening is that people have been having to try to make their way out of the landslide areas to find safety. And what's happened is that the India government has stepped up and set up some rescue camps. They've sent in rescuers who have been successful in rescuing some people that were trapped and got to them before further landslides and other catastrophic events have happened there. Homes have been totally devastated. Communities, towns, it's just been a horrifying situation. The rains came and they just were non-stop, and it caused the slides to start in the middle of the night. So most of the people that have died or are still missing didn't even have a chance. They were sleeping, and that's when the land, the mud, the trees, the rocks, and everything, as I said, just gave way and started just downpouring and onto the community. And when I mean downpouring, I mean the mud and just tons of it. People now are just beside themselves. They don't know how they're ever going to recover from this. And as you can see, I've got a story here, and this is of one individual's recount of the situation. And it says here from Reuters, whenever it rains very heavily in the hills of Wayanad in southern India, people stay awake, recalling a 2019 landslide that killed about 20 people. So, I mean, that was minor compared to what's going on right now. Last Monday, too, housewife M. Fatima said that she and her extended family in Marakai village stayed awake as incessant rain poured down during the day and into the night. When the first landslide hit around 1 a.m., they were all awake, and she went on to say that everyone in the room was crying. It felt like death was imminent. At least one other landslide followed. The family of about 20 people moved out early on Tuesday with other villagers who survived the two landslides. Fatima said it was night and houses were scattered, so they were unaware that scores had died in the area. Nearly 100 of the villagers, including children and pregnant women, trekked for miles through the devastation of debris, wet soil, large rocks, and uneven terrain downhill, Fatima said. Rescuers did reach them and shifted them to a relief camp in the town of Mapati. But Fatima remains distressed. She doesn't know what is left of her house once they go back. And that was when she was speaking to Reuters at the rescue camp. The landslides on Tuesday that hit Wayanad district in Kerala state, a popular tourist destination, killed more than 170 people and left hundreds homeless, with more than 8,000 people sheltered in the safety of camps. Most victims, as I said, died in their sleep as torrents of mud, boulders, water, and trees swept through tea and cardamom estates and plantation villages, burying people or washing them away. And the searchers and rescuers are still at this time looking for people trapped in the mud who may still be buried alive, literally. They're holding out hope that they're going to find more people, that they're going to be able to rescue more people. But again, it is a tragic story unfolding there. And it's, one of those areas that's going to be very difficult to get relief and emergency services in within a timely manner. It's going to be a tough one. There has been a lot of remediation in areas to solidify areas that are at risk of mudslides. But unfortunately, these smaller communities are not on that priority list at this time. With the push and people leaving some areas that are being redeveloped and such, there's illegal construction going on as well, which is further disturbing the ground and causing instability, and again resulting in more of the land being unstable and contributing to these mudslides as well. So as the story goes on, I'm not going to read the rest of it, but I will just scroll through it so that you can take a look. Pause your screen and actually read that, or just go to Routers and read that. The BBC has some great articles. This photo here was from the BBC report. And I just encourage you to keep up on what's going on, to really keep all of the Indians in your thoughts and your prayers in terms of the people who are still trapped, those who may need rescuing, and for all of the victims and their families who have succumbed to these horrific landslides and acts of nature. Some people are blaming this on the warming of the seas and contributing to the region's instability when it comes to areas that are within lower plains or with rivers and such that are just acting different than they would have 20 years ago in terms of the paths and corrosion with the climate change and global warming. So again, this comes up, but again, it is something that they have seen coming and they've seen it before, and there's been a lack of action to take precautions. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that, there's so many areas that need to be stabilized, but just so many workers and resources and finances to make that happen quickly enough. So we're not pointing any fingers. We're just saying that, it is something that has been of note. And unfortunately, in some of these communities, they just don't have the communication available to give the advanced warnings. So again, our thoughts are with everyone impacted by this tragedy, and we will be keeping up to date. I encourage all of our viewers to keep up as well on the aid organizations who will be responding, hopefully, and if you're able to help them out when that time comes. But again, people don't know how they're going to rebuild. There's houses that are destroyed. There are plantations that are destroyed, and people are looking to rebuild, but they're day workers. So they rely on the daily wages they make just to make it from day to day and week to week. So it's going to be almost an insurmountable challenge for these people to rebuild their homes and to recover everything that they've lost. I mean, it's just a very sad situation there, and our thoughts go out to them, Angus.
Yeah, it's a terrible story of human tragedy, but it's a familiar one. How often does this happen every year? Every monsoon brings with it these huge landslides right across all the mountainous regions and hilly areas of India. And unfortunately, it has gone on since India, the physical continent of India has ever existed.
Yeah.
The question is it getting worse? Is it global warming? I don't know, that's open to debate. But what is for sure is that these incidents do occur every single year. And every year, the news has to report on these terrible tragedies, these mass deaths of families swept away by these dreadful landslides. So the question is there an element of human failure here? Now, one the facts are, we know every year these things happen. Every monsoon comes around every year without fail, and with it comes massive heavy rains. And of course, heavy rains are going to wash away mountainsides. They're going to cause these dreadful mudslides and landslips which sweep away villages. The question is, what is being done to mitigate this, to reduce the number of potential casualties? And there has been a massive mudslinging, if you excuse the pun, a dreadful mudslinging political argument going on in the Lok Sabha and across social media between the various parties, saying, well, look, there is a political failure here, in that why aren't these areas better prepared, knowing full well that every year the monsoon comes and brings with it these terrible tragedies. So what is being done to mitigate, to reduce the number of deaths? What is doing to protect many of these villages from clearly very dangerous overhanging hillsides that will be swept away as soon as the rains come yet again? So yeah, there's a lot of politicians are playing politics over this, but at the end of the day, it's the ordinary people on the ground who are suffering, and it's very tragic. And I'm going to also then bring this back up to the Punjab and particularly the Himachal Pradesh region up in the foothills of the Himalayas, where this same situation occurs almost every single year, where deaths occur on a mass scale, again because mountainsides are washed away every single monsoon. And of course they suffer massively. This incident particularly was in Kerala, but up in the northwest of India, this happens every single year as well. And again, it highlights one particular issue, and again, a human failure. And when I say human failure, I'm particularly again pointing at the politicians here, the government, is that water is in massively plentiful supply in India every monsoon. It gets a massive amount of rainfall, natural water falling from the heavens. Yet the Punjab, particularly in northwest India, suffers massively with flooding during the monsoon, and yet come the dry months, they are parched, they are barren, they are struggling to irrigate the breadbasket of India. Yeah. Again, it always comes down to bad management, poor management by the government. Again, it's human failures. We can't change nature much as we try on an annual basis, but ultimately we cannot change nature to any significant degree. So we know that every year monsoon rains will come. So what are the government and the government agencies doing about it? Firstly, to protect the people who are vulnerable to these situations, and secondly, what are they doing to preserve this valuable natural resource of water that the Punjab specifically and particularly needs, and therefore India needs? Because Punjab provides so much of India's food. So why on earth is a Punjab being deprived of its most precious resource, that of water, and the farmers are struggling to irrigate their very own crops, etc., etc. It's all about human failure, James. And it's tragic to see this every year.
It is, and we're in a similar situation with all the wildfires here in Canada, the destruction, the towns that are lost. And I mean, Jasper National Park is a UNESCO heritage site that has been lost with the recent wildfire. And people are already trying to point fingers at politicians, blaming them for a lack of preparation and preparedness. So again, it's not something that's isolated to India when it comes to the finger pointing and again the mudslinging back and forth, trying to play politics over such tragedies. So, it's something that we see here as well. So moving on though, Angus, right now I'm working on a special report that we will discuss on the Monday program, and it will be released on Monday as well as a separate special report. And that has to do with secret meetings going on between India and Canada with the intelligence and political community. They're actually happening in a third country, so it's not happening within Canada or India. And this has to do with the raw agents who have been accused and involved within attempted assassinations on North American soil, as well as the successful assassinations here in Canada and other areas. There's new information that has come out, and again, this is an ongoing report that is taking into account all of the new information that we're compiling, and we'll have that ready for an overview on Monday's show, and also a special full report on Monday as well that'll be just released on its own as a separate report. Moving on from that, though, I just thought I would touch on it to give the viewers something to look forward to on Monday with some new information and hopefully a few questions that may be answered, but it's going to take time. Let's take a look, though, as we're talking about India and the violence. We are, of course, well aware of the situation in Manipur and in many other regions that Angus and I have been covering over the last months and if not years in different programs and different reports. But right now, I thought that we would take a look that the U.S. government's State Department and International Affairs has increased the warning for several areas of India, not only for private citizens traveling, but they have taken very serious steps for any government employees who are in India to restrict their movements and their departure from certain regions or into certain regions without security, or just banning them from travel altogether to certain areas. So let's take a look at this increase in the level 2 exercise. This is, again, the travel advisories and warnings that come out in relation to the security, the terrorist attacks, and the U.S. government went as far as to warn travelers about rapes that have been going on and personal violence. So not even just the terrorist and the unsettlement with the other issues, but also the threats to personal safety to individuals there. So, of course, at level 2, due to crime and terrorism, some areas have increased risk. Do not travel to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which is an area that Angus and I have been reporting extensively on recently. And that, again, is due to terrorism and civil unrest within 10 kilometers of India-Pakistan border due to the potential for armed conflict. So, again, stay away from those regions. And portions of central and east India due to terrorism, Manipur due to violence and crime, which we've spoken about again. Reconsider travel to the northeastern states due to terrorism violence. So it goes on, and it gives a country summary about the issues that are going on. And right here it states, country summary, India authorities report that rape is one of the fastest growing crimes in India. Violent crimes such as sexual assault has happened at tourist sites and other locations. So it's, again, tourists are at risk as well. Terrorists may attack with little or no warning, and that kind of goes without saying. I've never seen them put up billboards announcing a date and time that they're going to attack. So again, you've got to be very, very aware of your surroundings. And as I said down here, the U.S. government has limited ability to provide emergency services to U.S. citizens in rural areas. So again, you may be on your own if you get yourself into a situation that you can't get out of and would be looking normally for the U.S. consulate or the U.S. employees or representatives to help you with. They may not be able to do that. So you may be on your own. And again, they're giving you that warning. So I'm going to scoot down the list, though. There are, of course, do not travel alone, particularly if you're a woman. So again, like this is something that Angus, you and I have been discussing quite a bit about the safety, security of individuals, the lack of law and order when it comes to enforcing a lot of laws because of the attacks, the unrest, and the other problems that have been going on. So it goes right here, though, right up to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, going to level 4, which is very high for a warning, and it just says do not travel. It's not a warning, it's not a caution, it is a plain language do not travel. And this is a huge indicator I look at, because you can see a lot of other areas are at level 4 now. Government staff are not allowed to leave the certain areas that they are working in without, as I said, security, or just not at all, even with security. I wanted to bring this up because it is something that the world will hopefully take note of, because the U.S. is not the only country that is giving these warnings. And this goes to show that they are well aware of all of the human rights issues, the increased crime, the lack of control, and the lack of response to the safety of individuals in these regions. So hopefully with the international world having to issue these travel warnings, they're going to also come out and say, okay, India, it's time that you do something about this and stop turning a blind eye to the minorities and those who are most impacted. And that again brings us back to the Modi government and the BJP not really putting the resources towards the minorities, whether it's the Sikhs, the Muslims, the Christians, and so many others. They just are not there in concern to dedicating resources to help these individuals if they are not of a Hindu background. And it's a shame. It's a human rights atrocity that's going on, and they need to take it serious. They need to respond, and they need to protect their own citizens. The traveling Americans or other international individuals, if they are traveling there, they are making a conscious choice to go there. When it comes to the Indian minorities, they do not have the choice of traveling and leaving. That is their home. That is their community. That is their history. And that is why it's so important that India protect the rights of all persons. And to protect these people is long overdue, Angus.
Yeah, it's. I think India has a real problem. And this is very clearly writ large in the warnings from the US. I think there's two sides to this. Firstly, there are the areas that are the known trouble spots and have been for many years. I mean, J&K is a prime example of that, and Manipur to a slightly lesser extent. Yeah, we know in J&K that there has been this enormous military clampdown, this huge destruction of basic human rights of those indigenous people living there. And there is a militancy problem. We have to acknowledge that. Clearly, there are Islamic militants crossing the border from Pakistan and stirring up trouble. So, yeah, there has to be some sort of governmental control to reduce that. But I think the irony here, though, is that the Modi government are trying to promote J&K as this wonderful, and it is the most beautiful part of the world. They're trying to promote it as a tourist area, and tourists have visited J&K, and in fact they hosted the G20 meeting, I think, towards the end of last year up in Kashmir. And the pictures that came out were very beautiful, but clearly underneath the surface there is this terrible, terrible problem of violence. So regions like the northwest and the northeast of India, Manipur specifically, where there has been dreadful violence, terrible militant activity going on, and of course huge governmental oppression. It's not safe, certainly for those people living there, and it is clearly not safe for anybody coming from outside to visit those areas. So that is one side of this coin. The other side, though, which is to some degree even more concerning, is that there are other parts of India that are not known militant military hotspots where there is clear violence going on in terms of weapons and blades and actual military aggression going on from two sides. There is just a cultural problem, and we've touched on this on many occasions, and that cultural problem really always focuses down on violence against women. And we have had to unfortunately report on several occasions about violence meted out against women. And of course, it's not just tourists who are visiting, it's local people, it's the indigenous people of many of these states that are being subjected to this most terrible violence. And this is a cultural problem. Yes. Why is it there? I don't know. I don't live in India, and I'm no expert on this. But as an observer from outside, I can recognise a massive cultural problem when there is one. And of course, the alarm bells are being rung from the United States and many other countries that are issuing travel warnings. And the British Foreign Office, of course, issue very similar warnings to the same sorts of regions. And unfortunately, again, the Indian government, what are they doing about this? They are, in many cases, turning a blind eye to this. Why? Is it deliberate? Again, that is open to debate. But certainly, this violence is going on. Nothing or very little is being done about it. Is there some form of acquiescence? As in, is the Indian government deliberately letting this happen? Because, of course, a lot of this violence, as you say, James, is against religious minorities. And of course, it's very easy for the Hindu majority government and the Hindu majority population to turn a blind eye to this because, well, it's not affecting us, it's only affecting the small minority. But if it is happening at the scale which it is being reported at, then it is a big societal problem for India. It's a huge problem from a nation, firstly, that calls itself democratic. Secondly, that is trying to promote itself on the global stage as a global player. And thirdly, as a potential superpower. Now, superpowers cannot afford to have fundamental, basic society problems like this happening within its nation. It cannot allow such dreadful violence against women to occur on such a regular basis. You would expect this in third world countries. Unfortunately, as sad and tragic as that is, that's the sort of thing in countries that don't have control over its own nation, that doesn't have the rule of law, that doesn't control its own society under normal controls and society expectations. But in India, you don't expect this, but it is happening, James, on a daily basis, as you've just reported. So yeah, again, it's another story of, in my opinion, human failure, governmental failure, political failure, and cultural failure.
Yeah, they've got to take some steps there to really hold those accountable that are perpetrating these acts of, just intolerable violence against women. It's just not acceptable at any level in this day and age.
Yeah, very sad. Okay, let's move on then to my first story. And the SGPC, which is the organisation operating from the Akal Takht, who control the Gurdwaras around the world and issue diktats on a regular basis in terms of managing the Gurdwaras around the world. In an unfortunate turn of events, the SGPC has had no choice but to make security at all Gurdwaras mandatory 24/7 around the world. And this decree that's been just issued from the Akal Takht is a result of ongoing and continual attacks on the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, that of course is the sacred scriptures of the Sikh religion. And there have been a lot of these attacks on the scriptures, very targeted, very deliberate attacks. And of course, it's a deliberate attack on one of the most sacred elements of Sikhi. Of course, the scriptures are revered extraordinarily highly by Sikhs around the world. And any attack at any level on the scriptures, on the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, is seen as a very personal attack against every Sikh. So many of these attacks have been random, and many of them have been targeted well in advance. And as a result, unfortunately, the Akal Takht has had to issue to Gurdwaras around the world, you need to increase your security. This is not optional. This is a mandate from the Akal Takht. Now, they have referred to a few specific attacks. And of course, two of those, in fact, have occurred here in the UK, and we've reported on them. The first one, to remind our viewers, was in Gravesend in the southeast of England only a couple of weeks ago. And this was a 17-year-old boy, just a young boy, who attacked the Sri Guru Nanak Darbar Gurdwara in Gravesend in Kent in the southeast of England. And in that attack, this young boy, and unfortunately because of our legal reasons, because he is deemed as a minor, he's under 18 years old, he cannot be named, and therefore we can't identify his ethnicity and of course the probable reasons why he made this attack. But it's very clear that some of the pictures that came out on social media, he was brown-skinned, and I think there is a deep implication of which community he came from. And in this attack, he attacked the congregation, the Sangat, and as a result, 2 women afterwards were treated for cuts and bruises. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured, and police officers did recover a large bladed weapon. And this young boy was charged with assault, occasioning actual bodily harm, using or threatening unlawful violence, threats to kill, threatening a person with a bladed weapon, possessing a bladed article in a public place, and attempted grievous bodily harm. That's a long list of charges. So this minor is going to probably spend quite some time behind bars. And the local police chief made the statement that it was an isolated incident, and our initial inquiries suggest it is not terrorism related. We are treating it as religiously aggravated. Now that's a curious phraseology there, because Angie Chapman, who's the police chief there, she said, it's not terrorism, it's religiously aggravated. Now one has to ask, what is the distinction there? I would actually argue that is a terrorism-related act. But the fact that she says it was religiously aggravated, again, implies who the perpetrator was, what community this perpetrator came from. Yeah. And so as a result of that, of course, this has provoked the Akal Takht into making this decree. And another outrageous, and I laugh because just the sheer audacity of this one happens in an area called Scunthorpe. Now, Scunthorpe is in the sort of the northeast of England, or certainly the east of Yorkshire in the east of England. And this occurred, again, just the day after the Gravesend attack. And this was less religiously motivated, more criminal. In fact, this and I'll show the outrageous CCTV footage of this. And this was a Romanian. So again, these are immigrants, and this is an immigrant community that has caused an awful lot of criminal activity here in the UK, which of course is generating an awful lot of right-wing backlash. This is from the Romanian community. And a Romanian couple entered the Darbar Sahib of the Scunthorpe Gurdwara and attempted to steal the golak, that's the donation box. Now, fortunately, these two thieves were apprehended by Gianni G and the Sangat before they could escape. And fortunately, the golak was recovered. But the sheer, simple audacity of this couple entering the Gurdwara and stealing the donation box in broad daylight, it's just shocking again. But more seriously, the Akal Takht did refer to a lot of attacks that had happened in India itself, a lot of attacks against the scriptures in Gurdwaras across India. And of course, these are very specifically targeted by, usually from Hindutva activists and Hindutva terrorists, I'll call them. And this, I'm showing now a video of an interview under basically an interrogation of a criminal who was apprehended for his suspicious activity at Sri Chura Khu Sahib in Phagwara. And this happened earlier this year, in January, in fact. And this gentleman spent the night at the historical Punjab Gurdwara. And he was caught after making some very suspicious activity around the scriptures. And this is where it starts to get very interesting, certainly for us reporting it, because I've talked about the Nihungs and my deep respect for the Nihung community. And the Nihung community are these a specific element, part of the Sikh community. And they've been described here, as when I read this bit of research, as a military faction within the Sikh faith, with a reputation as soldiers across India, known to be heavily armed. Nihung Singhs have long actively worked across India to maintain apt protocol in Sikh spaces and beyond. And I did show some time ago, in one of our earlier shows, a photograph of one of these fabulous Nihungs in his uniform, who basically, and this is from the 19th century, this splendid gentleman who typified the Nihungs of the 19th century, who again were part of the warrior class of the Sikh, and their roots were back to the missals, the militias of the Sikh community, the Sikh villages and tribes in the 19th century. And I didn't realise, of course, but of course one of our commenters, one of our regular viewers, is from this Nihung class. And welcome, of course, to you into our viewership. But he reminded us, and I didn't realise this, that the Nihungs remain today as part of Sikh culture. And of course, as I discovered researching this story, that Nihungs are still out there and they still operate, and their role in Sikh society now is to protect. They form the guardian. They are the guardians of Sikh protocol. They are the guardians of course, the Sikh scriptures, particularly in India. So this Indian gentleman who was caught by the Nihung Singhs, and he was interrogated, and he was interrogated at great length, and it turns out, I shouldn't laugh, but this criminal was essentially killed by Nihung Ramandeep Singh in, quote, self-defense. So clearly, these Nihungs don't mess about. These people are ruthless, as of course they have to be. And this criminal who attacked, or potentially attacked, the scriptures was caught by the Nihungs. He was interrogated, and through some sad, I think in the West, James, we would call it falling down the stairs, it led to this criminal's death. So I think the message from here is don't mess with the Nihungs, because unfortunately you may meet with a terrible accident. And there have, unfortunately, there have been an estimated 300 cases or more of beadbi, which is the word for religious sacrilege of this kind, noted across recent years. In fact, I say recent years, there have been 300 cases of beadbi since 2014, when the BJP took power, and there has been this sudden rise in sacrilegious attacks against Sikh holy scriptures. And again, during the time of the farmers' protest, the original farmers' protest in 2021, and again, I can't help laughing at this, but Nihungs executed another criminal who attacked a Guru Granth Sahib Ji at the Delhi border. And a month later, another attack, and this is Amritsar in the Harmandir Sahib, led to the execution by Nihung of another criminal who attacked the Holy Scriptures. So I think just two takeaways from this story. Firstly, how sad that across the world Gurdwaras are being attacked. They are under attack. The sacred scriptures are under attack from, I think we can guess primarily where from. And secondly, how incredible, James, to discover that these Nihungs still operate today. These people are ruthless, as they absolutely have to be. And if I was a Hindutva activist, if I was a Hindutva person, criminal, looking to attack these, I would be very afraid of coming up against this warrior class. They are like the Sikh ninjas. They are the Sikh Nihungs. What a fabulous bunch of people. What a scary bunch of people.
You know, common sense is not so common anymore, Angus. You'd think that people would look and go, I'm not messing with them. Plain and simple. I'm just not doing it, right? But, you know, people don't have that common sense. And the sad part, though, is the desperation of some of these individuals, where they take the money that's being offered to go and do these acts. I mean, you know, there's obviously a level of desperation there that they're willing to go in and desecrate, you know, just religious artifacts is what they are. And, you know, for people to be that desperate to need that money, it's also says a lot.
Indeed, and of course you brought up one key point there, is that the criminal, the criminal in January who ended up sadly finding an accident. It turns out he was paid to make this attack on the Holy Scriptures, and that apparently is a common occurrence. So clearly there is money again being sourced from somewhere, and again I think we can guess ultimately where it's coming from, to attack objects of sacrilegious value, or sacred value to the Sikh religion. So it's very, very sad what's going on. Yeah. Okay, we are pressed for time, so let's rush on to my second story, and I'll have to rush through this again as time marches on. In London, this is quite an interesting story. In London, there is a new Sikh Court that was established just under a couple of months ago. And this court has been established by a bunch of Sikh lawyers here in the UK. And it was designed to provide an alternative dispute resolution service for the Sikh community here in the UK. And it's particularly aimed at the families division of the legal process. And it was designed to resolve family and civil disputes, but particularly in line with Sikh principles. And one of their spokespersons said at the time, this is not a religious tribunal, but it's aimed at assisting Sikh families in their time of need when dealing with conflict and disputes in line with Sikh principles. Now, it's being staffed by a team of around 30 magistrates and 15 judges, of whom, interestingly, most will be women. And actually, this does reflect the family courts in the UK, which again are primarily, I was going to say manned, ironically, personed by female judges and female barristers, female clerks, etc., etc. Now, the magistrates will play a mediatory role, facilitating communication, helping communication between parties in these disputes and guiding them towards relevant support services. Now, this whole service has been developed in collaboration with all sorts of Sikh charities and to address issues such as domestic violence, anger management, substance abuse, etc., etc. And the services are provided in both Punjabi and English. And of course, if mediation is unsuccessful, these disputes can be brought before a more formal Sikh court judge for a legally binding resolution under what's called the Arbitration Act. But importantly, these proceedings are entirely voluntary. So they're not mandatory, they are voluntary. But of course, anybody who enters this and signs up to it, the final result is binding. And they have gone to great pains to point out that the Sikh Court, this new Sikh Court's role is not to replace the existing legal system, the British legal system. That's a very important distinction to make. Now, unfortunately, this did subsequently, and there's been a bit of a debate recently over the last few weeks about this new Sikh Court. And an article was written in one of our left-wing papers, The Guardian, and it was written by a lady, actually a very accomplished lady, and a lady, a very well-meaning lady called Pragna Patel. She's a founding member of what's called the Southall Black Sisters and Project Resist, an advocacy group for minority women. She's done a lot of great work for the rights of women in society, particularly amongst the religious minorities. And she has campaigned against the growth of religious courts, primarily because she says that they're tied to a wave of religious fundamentalism targeting the rights and freedoms of women. And she claims there's been no transparent and democratic debate or public consultation on the need for such a Sikh court, particularly with Sikh women, on what constitutes Sikh principles. And the use of religious laws to regulate minority women's lives is not only discriminatory, it is immensely harmful in a context where domestic abuse and related femicides of South Asian and other minority women remain persistently high. Now, I think I can read between the lines why this lady is against the Sikh court. And I think it's primarily because she has represented, and I do know she's represented a lot of women who have fallen who've become very vulnerable to Islamic law. And Islamic law, and I have to use my words carefully here, Islamic law tends to in many ways subjugate the rights of women. And this has been a huge debate here in the UK and across the West. And she has unfortunately had to get involved in a lot of Islamic law cases where, and there is of course Sharia law that operates to a certain degree here in the UK. It is, and it often falls foul of British law. And because, of course, they diverge significantly, particularly when it comes to the rights of women. Sharia law does not treat women in the same way that British law does. And, of course, this is where I think this lady is coming from. She is concerned that the Sikh courts will have the same impact upon women's rights. And I personally, again, from an observer's perspective, and from what I understand of Sikh law, this is absolutely not the case. One thing that has struck me about Sikhi is that women, and this is written into the very words of the gurus, and they made it very clear since the 1600s when it first established, that women are seen as absolute equals on every single level, in every aspect of law, society, whatever. So there is absolutely no danger. If these courts follow the principles of Sikhi, there is no danger that women will be subjected to any form of discrimination or lose any rights. That is my opinion. But I will give you the opinion of a Sikh barrister who actually operates in this court. And this is a letter that he wrote to that same publication, that same newspaper, The Guardian, in defence of the courts. And he said, "We agree that religious courts can create safeguarding concerns and that traditionally patriarchal religious and cultural bodies can place pressure on women to comply or acquiesce. The Sikh court is not a religious court. We operate with a Sikh ethos and apply the Sikh principles of equality, integrity and fairness to our conduct, but not to our decision making. We apply the law of England and Wales to resolve disputes before us." So he's making it clear the rule of English law stands as the primary principle. As family law practitioners, we are acutely attuned to the need for robust safeguarding procedures, which is why we have a comprehensive safeguarding policy developed in collaboration with a number of women's rights charities published on the website. Polling within the community indicated a desire among respondents to see people who look like them on the bench. We recognise efforts in the judiciary to improve representation. We offer a more representative forum. In fact, 67% of our judges are women. And I think that's important. Transparency and accountability are core to the Sikh Court. We will publish an anonymised statement of reasons for each matter resolved by us so that our decisions can be scrutinised. It is completely transparent, he's saying. In other words, every judgment we make is open to public scrutiny. and therefore, if you want to criticise it, you have grounds to do so if you can find any grounds, etc., and the list of justifications go on. So again, I won't go into any more detail, but ultimately, it's very interesting to see the Sikh Court. I think it has a place certainly in Sikh society, but it has gone to great pains to point out it does not come above English law, the law of England that exists here in England, and it is designed simply to help the Sikh community seek resolution in all sorts of particularly family disputes, but ultimately English law trumps anything that this court comes up with. Fascinating insight into the Sikh community, James. I don't know if you have anything like the same in Canada.
I'm very curious to watch how this rolls out and how the impact is on taking a burden off of the traditional legal system, but more about how it resolves issues and how it actually reduces violence and helps families to move forward and to stay together, because there's so much fracturing and separation of families in society today that I think that this could really be a huge benefit to a lot of families and children, women. I think it's a win-win, and I'm really curious to watch how it rolls out and how it progresses and what the results are.
Indeed. Well, it's been going about 7 or 8 weeks now, and we'll keep an eye on it and report any further feedback that we come across. Okay, rushing on to my final story, and a story I covered a couple of weeks ago. Just outside London, the borough of Slough has a large Sikh community here in the UK, and the Sikh residents in Slough Borough asked the local council excuse me, to debate the whole topic of the 1984 genocide, and they wanted a debate to pass a motion for the Borough Council to recognise the terrible genocide or genocides of 1984. Now, in a sudden twist of events, this debate has been dropped by the council. It turns out that councillors had been set to decide whether to write to the government, the British government, expressing concerns about the safety of activists in Slough, and particularly related to what happened after 1984 and the threats from India from transnational repression since. And it turns out that the debate had to be dropped. Now, the Conservative council leader, a chap called Dexter Smith, said the debate had to be blocked because he highlighted a petition that had been signed by 57 people that branded the motion as divisive. And he said that the petitioners felt it would be divisive to good community relations and would create ill feeling towards the Sikh community. And he said it's the first time in his experience in over 20 years that there has been a petition asking for a motion to be withdrawn from debate. It's almost unheard of, this. And he did acknowledge that to some it may sound like this pro-Sikh motion, to others it may sound anti-Sikh and anti-Indian or even anti-Indian government. But this motion was actually proposed by 2 Islamic councillors, Sabia Akram, who was the primary councillor who proposed it. And she said the safety and security of our citizens is protected in law. The fact that security agencies have contacted families in Slough where 2 members and their families' lives are at risk is a real concern. This debate should be had. And they are, as councillors, duty-bound to raise and demand answers on behalf of our citizens. And the story goes on, and again, I won't go into too much detail, but the key here is that a petition was raised by 50 or signed by 57 so-called Sikh residents of the area, and it said that the proposal was a deliberate attempt to create division and ill feeling towards the Sikh community. And contrary to that, other Sikh groups who supported the debate, that includes the Sikh Federation in the UK and the Guru Nanak Gurdwara, one of the largest Gurdwaras in the UK and the West Midlands, they supported this motion. They were almost incensed why it was withdrawn. Right. Now, my takeaway from this story is, okay, firstly, great that this debate was about to be had, and hopefully it will come back. I think later in the year they're planning to have this debate again. But this petition, and I'm curious about this, was this petition signed genuinely by 57 genuine Sikh residents of Slough, or was it signed by somebody else? I don't know. My immediate suspicions are alerted. Now, maybe genuinely that the Sikh community in that area is actually divided to the extent where 57 have felt strongly enough saying, no, it is not fair, it is divisive to bring up old issues like 1984. It's not right to do this. It's just creating division and hatred where none allegedly exists so far. Or is it something more sinister? Are these signatories to this debate genuine Sikhs, or are they somebody else? One wonders. I don't know. I am purely speculating. And I wonder if any due diligence has been done by the councillors to verify these signatories. Are they genuine Sikh residents? Are they genuinely members of the Sikh community? Maybe one of them is a viewer, is in our own audience. If you are, please make a comment. Email us. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us why you objected. Because we are genuinely interested to know why people would not want to debate, firstly, the genocides in 1984, but secondly, it also referred to transnational repression. And we do know that residents of Slough have received death threats and have received warnings from MI6 and MI5, the domestic intelligence service, saying that your lives are under threat from India. So, yeah, James, I think this is, although it's a very low-level local story, it has bigger implications, doesn't it?
So I think that what's overlooked a lot of times is with situations such as the genocide, and not just that, but other very violent or traumatic experiences. I think that there are a certain portion of victims or families that have a really hard time with it being brought up again. And although there is a need to recognize it officially as a genocide, there is a need to get to the truth of information that has still not been released. I think that there is a certain part of the community that would rather move forward and not dig up and poke at these old painful traumas of the past. So that may or may not be a factor in why certain people, called it a divisive issue. And again, it's just a fact of human nature that when we see pain, we want to avoid it. And whether that's emotional or physical, it is a part of human nature to want to avoid that pain. And definitely the genocide is an extremely painful issue to a lot of people still.
Yeah, and I wonder, actually, we touched upon this yesterday about the young generation. It could well be. It's primarily signed by those from the young generation who weren't even born in 1984. And of course, to them, it might not mean very much. And I think, again, this is where channels like us and certainly many in the Sikh community have a responsibility to pass on to the young generation, to make them aware of how important those events were, how significant they were, how impactful they were on certainly not just the Punjab, but the Sikh community as a whole. Because, of course, what happened then still resonates. And there's still people very much alive today who were directly impacted by the terrible events of 1984. And I think if it is part of the young generation, I really, really hope that they are educated about how important those events were, and of course the years that followed in the Punjab, how important those events were and how significant they are to their very own community. And lessons to be learned. Okay, we're up against the clock, so let us race into our comments section, which we must unfortunately rush through to meet our deadlines. So, The Great Betrayal again, our show the other day, evoked once again loads and loads of great comments. Hardal Singh said, thanks and great show, and more people are watching your programme. Excellent. Yes, thank you for this comment. And I put this one because actually, yes, more and more people are watching our programme. Thank you so much to our audience that is growing. Please keep spreading the word. It is important that the more people who watch our show, the more we can bring you, the more resources we can bring in to expand the capability of this show. We talked about maybe going live and having phone-ins, etc. We would love to get to that stage. So thank you for watching, but of course, keep the good word spread around. Keep more and more people coming to our show. Let them know about our existence. Thank you, Hardal Singh, for that comment. Now, lots of debates kicked off, and I just highlighted a couple here. One of our resident contradictory commenters appears on a regular basis and is always great for a debate. Gurmeet Singh. Khalistan Zindabad, absolutely. And many people make, of course, the same comment. But here we go. S. Simba, who loves just wading in to come up with a contrarian view, says, First, get Khalistan, then say that. Otherwise, it means nothing. Well, why not? But of course, Gurdwaras Court comes back, so don't worry, things come with time. Just keep watching. Everyone has a right to reflect their opinion. So it's like, calm down, it's coming, patience. And Cruella, again, one of our regulars, comes in with, it's right around the corner, don't worry. They're just saying, look, patience, it's coming. You know, we're excited, we're enthusiastic. Sorry if we say Khalistan's Zindabad, but it's part of our excitement and enthusiasm for what we know is around the corner. But Simba comes straight back with opens up another provocative comment. Looks like India isn't going to give Punjab up. So let's make Khalistan in Canada again then. What about the Punjab, which Pakistan's occupying? Don't you effing want that? So again, bringing up a regular comment that a lot of Khalistan critics and Indies come up with, saying, well, look, why you all out in the diaspora, particularly in Canada, but of course in the US and the UK, if you want Khalistan, then have it in Canada. Well, we've talked about this in the past and we've defended that whole argument primarily because it's down to democracy. Yeah, we can have Khalistan in Canada if there's enough sufficient support for it. But anyway, and then Cruella again comes back with a robust response. Why does it bother you? Punjab will become the United States of Khalistan. Then we'll switch land with a village in Pakistan. You just stay on the other side in Hindustan. Clearly, that's where the other commenter is from. Sounds like you've left India as well. Can't have been that great there. You live in Western countries and want to take the freedom away from other people. Sounds like a true Indian. So a good, healthy debate, I would say there, James. And again, one of our resident trolls, should we call them, Simba, loves coming in with provocative comments. It keeps things very lively.
And I love it when they can play the devil's advocate, but they also have to keep in mind that what they are fighting for in terms of Punjab and Khalistan is the return of part of their land of the Sikh Empire. So it's a different kettle of fish, so they say, to say have it in Canada versus actually returning their traditional land to them that way.
Indeed. So thanks, Simba. Keep up the good work. Great sporting comments. Now, Magic Core. Hi, good morning. Oh, what a lovely comment. It was a comment just made the other day. And a very good morning to you, Manjit Kaur, if you're watching as well. I just want to say thank you for that lovely, simple comment. And Azad Singh, first comment today from Punjab. And Gurpreet responded, thanks a lot for watching the show. Spread the word. Please do spread the word. Yes, welcome from the Punjab. We do know that we have a small number of viewers in the Punjab. Welcome, a good day to everybody who's watching us in the Punjab. I guess you're all watching on VPNs because we are banned, we are blocked in India for obvious reasons, because our message is a very uncomfortable message for the Indian government. So they don't like to hear. They certainly don't like people in the Punjab to hear what we have to say. So thank you for watching us from the Punjab. To each and every one of you in the Punjab who is watching us, please tell all your friends, spread the word about VPNs, virtual private networks, I think it stands for, but VPNs, if you get a VPN, you can watch us. So get all your friends to sign up for VPNs. I know it does cost money, sadly, but not a lot of money, but get as many people in the Punjab on VPNs and watch us as much as you can. So thank you for that comment. And Green-Eyed said, this person appreciates our work. Thank you. Well, we very much appreciate your comments. I hope you one day become a platform similar to Al Jazeera. Wow, I wish we could. Our aspirations are one day to become the Sikh equivalent to Al Jazeera. Had it not been for Al Jazeera, the genocide in Gaza would not have been covered with any justice. Now, very good point, actually. And this is true, and this really does highlight the work that we do, James, is that we do provide this alternative narrative. Of course, there is one narrative, one dominating narrative that comes out of India that, unfortunately, that's primarily what all Indians see. They don't see the other side, the other part of the story. And like Al Jazeera reports on the Islamic side, the Arabic side of what's been happening in Gaza, as opposed to a lot of the Western press that, and actually that's not strictly true. That's a different debate. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. But certainly, like Al Jazeera does show an alternative version of events. We do try at Satellite to give a very different version of events, what we believe is more closer to the truth of what's happening in India and in Punjab, James, do we not?
And as I say, I don't think I'll be invited to the next summit with Modi and Putin, given that I'm now banned in both countries.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be holidaying, sadly, in India, which is a great shame.
We're not getting that Christmas dinner invitation.
Quite. I think we're off Mr. Modi's Christmas card list. Right, Jorai, Kamal doesn't know. So Kamal, this is back to our debate about beards and Kamala Harris's history, her really anti-Sikh history and her discrimination against Sikhs from a few years ago. Kamala Harris didn't know that Sikhs didn't shave their beards in 2 world wars. What a great comment, of course. The Sikhs fought with massive distinction in both world wars, and particularly World War One, where gas was a desperately horrible evil across the trenches, where I think, both sides used gas, mustard gas, a terrible weapon of war, since banned, of course. But as a result, soldiers particularly on the Western Front and the Eastern Front, had to wear respirators, gas masks. And of course, the Sikhs fought with massive distinction in the First World War, and of course they had to wear respirators. So they managed to wear them, 100 plus years ago. So I think there'll be a way around it. Now, Amrit Singh commented, I didn't realise this Canadian former Defence Minister, Mr. Sajjan Singh, had developed a mask for bearded people a few years ago. So, James, there are solutions out there. Clearly, there have been historic solutions. There is absolutely no excuse for discrimination that Kamala Harris was standing up for.
Well, and you're looking at the difference between an oxygen-fed mask, you're looking at the difference between a negative air pressure mask or a positive air pressure mask. So there are different masks and different purposes that can be interchangeable if needed. They don't guarantee the same level of protection, but they still are there as an option or alternative for people that cannot utilize one or the other, because there are also medical conditions, not just religious, but there are medical conditions why people cannot use certain masks as well. So.
And then racing into our final comment, and Jasleen, we made a very good comment once again. And this person refers to a quote that she made in an earlier comment. I'll repeat it. She made this wonderful quote, which I thought was beautifully poetic. She said, "Try us, world, try us. We know how to inhale the storm." And I wondered if there's the words of the guru. It turns out, no. And Jasleen says, you asked about the quote, "Try us, world, try us." I'm glad you liked it. It's my own quote. Well, how lovely. Again, wonderful, poetic quote. It was invoked by the emotions while writing the comment. And this person says that they are a humble blogger and an author. Well, clearly has a very great way with words. And then moves on about Kamala Harris. From the little I know, she seems to be a leftist dispositioned politician. Her views on abortion laws, for example, while socially and politically to a large extent it could be advantageous for many, but the main problem with leftist policy is that it's mostly anti-religion in this person's views. Now, this could be the problem with regards to the Sikh cause. Maybe she'll deem Khalistan to be not just a religious struggle, but also a voice against social and political injustice. Let's see which way the camel sits. May Waragaji bless the just moving to Khalistan. By his order, a land is created where all people live in harmony. Absolutely, I can totally endorse that, as I'm sure you do too, James.
Absolutely.
But of course, we must draw things to a close because we have overrun once again. Our timekeeping is appalling as always. What a habit! But unfortunately, there we must draw things to a close. You have been watching Perspectives. Don't forget to keep those comments coming in. We do obviously like to read them. We do enjoy your debates, which have been numerous and sometimes often heated, and sometimes very amusing, and sometimes extremely educational. So do keep those comments coming in. Don't forget you can email us, message us directly at message@satloadtv.com with anything that you would like to bring to our attention or any news stories that you'd like us to highlight. But in the meantime, it is goodbye from me and it is goodbye from James.
Take care, everyone. Stay safe, and thank you for watching.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you next time.